Hello students. Today we are going to go over interval notation, and a couple of vocabulary that we need to make sure that we know is an inequality. An inequality is anything that has one of these four signs in them. So for this one it means is less than. For this one it is greater than. And again, you should be taking notes on this. This is less than or equal to, and this right here is greater than or equal to. This is a sideways 8, but it's known as infinity or positive infinity. And then this right here at the very bottom is negative infinity, which means it goes on in the negative direction forever. And this positive infinity means it goes in the positive direction forever. So on your worksheets, you should be able to see this, and we'll be going over this as well. So AX is less than 2. Now, one easy way to remember on whether the dot is open or closed is whether it has more ink. Now, which one has more ink, A or B? If you said B, then you're absolutely right. So B, X is less than or equal to 2. So B, less than or equal to 2. So it has to be a closed dot because there's more ink down here. So less than or equal to 2, this one would be this one. Okay, X is less than 2. There's less ink, so it's an open dot, and it would be that one right there. Okay, C, X is greater than 2. Open dot, there's less ink, so it's got to be an open dot, and this one is going to be C. And this one, D, X is greater than or equal to 2, has to be this one. Now, I'm also going to teach you how to write it in interval notation. So, for interval notation, when I put this, parentheses, it does not include the number. So it's like less ink. If it is like this, it includes the number, so includes, and it takes more ink. So if I look at C, we go 2, because it doesn't include 2, and it goes up to infinity, or it goes on forever. Now, infinity, for some reason, they don't include infinity because we don't know where infinity is, and it goes on forever. Part A goes from negative infinity, and it does not include 2. Okay, D includes 2, and it goes forever in the right direction. So if it includes 2, we've got a bracket instead of parentheses. So you get 2 and then infinity there. And again, infinity is always with a parenthesis, not a bracket. This one goes from negative infinity, so parenthesis whenever there's an infinity, and it goes all the way up to 2. And that includes 2, so it's a bracket. So this is kind of new, but you can do it. It's just a different way to write the same graph. So A, B, C, and D can be shown in 3 different ways. These at the top, these as a graph, or this way in interval notation. Now, let's move on and do, you should fill this in on your paper. Now we'll go on to the next problems. So, number 4. X is greater than 4, we're going to graph it, and we're going to do interval notation. So X is less than 4, there's less ink, so it's going to be an open dot. We do not include 4. And then it's pointing to the left, so I'm going to say, okay, it's this direction. And I always want my variable to be on the left side. That way, whichever way is pointing, then I can shade it. Okay, so to write this in interval notation, we go parenthesis. It goes from negative infinity, and it goes up through 4. Now, try and guess whether I should have parentheses or brackets there. Which one is it? If you said parenthesis, you are correct because 4 is not included. Now, let's look at number 6. It has the X on the right-hand side, which I don't like. So I'm going to go ahead and reflect it over x, and I'm going to switch my sign. So instead of less than, it's greater than, and then I go -1. Okay, so this is what I want to graph. So I put a couple numbers on my number line. Yeah, I probably should have put 3 here and 5 here because I usually like at least 3 numbers. So if I put -1 right here, if I go this way, that's 0. If I go this way, it's -2. And it's less ink, so it's going to be an open dot at -1. And then I'm shading to the right. And generally, if I do anything fancy like this, I like to go back and check it. 0 is usually an easy one to check, so I'm going to put 0 in for x and see if that's true. And I go back to the original equation. Is -1 less than 0? And yes, -1 is less than 0 because I can tell on the number line it's to the left of 0, so it's lower than 0. Now I also need to write it in interval notation. So in interval notation, I would put -1, and I would put a parenthesis, not a bracket because I don't include 1, comma, and then I go on to infinity. So the side weighs 8. Now, do I put a bracket or parentheses after infinity? If you said parenthesis, you are exactly right. And there, I'm done with number 6. Now we're going to go on to a few more challenging ones. I believe these are on the next page where it says solve, graph, and give solution as an interval notation. So if I'm going to solve for this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my variable on the left side. So I'm going to just do a flip-flop. So I go k over 10, and instead of greater than, it's less than, and I'll put -15. And then to get k by itself, we do it as if that was an equal sign. I'm going to multiply by 10. Okay, so k is less than -150. Now for my graph, I'm going to put 150. I might put 145. Actually, that's 155. And 145 here. Okay? So again, more ink or less ink, it's less than. There's not more ink or equal to, so it's an open dot. And, whoops, it's -150. So this would be -1, -145, -155, because the higher the number negative, the lower it is. And then I'm going to shade it to the left. So let's see, where would 0 be on this number line? 0 is way up there. So if I look at 0, it's not shaded, so it shouldn't work. So if I put 0 in here, is -15 greater than 0? That would be false. So 0 doesn't work, and we don't have it shaded, so that works great. So our interval is going to be from -150, and we don't include it, so it's a parenthesis, -150, comma, and it goes on to infinity. Oh, -infinity, and it's a parenthesis. Okay, the next one, -96 is less than -5 minus 7k. I'm going to do a flip-flop, -5 minus 7k, and then I'm going to switch the sign, is greater than -96. I always want my variable on the left, so I flip my sign whenever I do that switch. I'm going to add 5. So then I get, cross this out, -7k is greater than -91. Then, here comes the tricky part. I'm going to divide by -7. So if I divide by -7, divide by negative, you switch. Okay, that means we need to switch the signs. So k, instead of greater than, becomes less than, and then 7 goes into 91. I want to say 13 times, and negative divided by negative is positive. So k is less than 13. Okay, so we have our number line. We go 13, 14, 12, and it's less than, so it doesn't have an or equal to, so it's an open dot, so less ink, and it's less than 13, so it goes this direction. And then 0 is down here, so we could plug 0 back into the original equation and go, is 96 less than negative 5 minus, this would be 0, is negative 96 less than 5? Negative 5. And yes, it is. So then you know you've shaded the right direction. Okay? Now we need to put it in an interval notation. So we go 13, and it's not included, so it's a parenthesis. Oh, you know what? 13 is on the upper half, and it goes to negative infinity. And I put that in parentheses. So it's parenthesis, negative infinity, comma, 13 parenthesis. And that should give you a good start on doing your work. Good luck, students. You rock.